Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tearing down the sound of one of the most unique guitarists on the planet, MIYAVI. We're going to get right into the technique, the insane custom gear, and all the little secrets that let him sound like a one-man army. You hear people call him the samurai guitarist, and honestly, it makes perfect sense. The sound he creates is just so massive, so complex, it really does feel like a full band is up there with him. So the real question is, how in the world does he pull it off? Let's figure it out. Okay, so let's get right to it. Before we even think about pedals or amps or any of that, the entire secret starts right here, in his hands. It all boils down to this completely unique technique that pretty much throws the rulebook on electric guitar out the window.
This is the absolute core of his sound, his signature slap style. He's not just playing notes, he's treating the guitar like a drum. He's generating the rhythm, the bass line, and the melody all at the exact same time. It's kind of mind-blowing.
So how does it work? Well, it's this incredibly fluid three-part motion. He uses his thumb to slap the low strings, that's your kick drum and your bass. Then he pops the high strings with his fingers, that's your snare hit. And then he uses his fingernails for these aggressive strums. It's literally a drum kit and a guitar part, all happening in one hand.
And that brings us to this super important detail that a lot of people miss. You can't just attack steel guitar strings with your regular fingernails. They would completely shred in like 5 seconds. So he uses these specialized nail treatments that make his nails incredibly hard. They basically become custom built-in guitar picks.
All right, so we've got the technique down. Now let's talk about the guitar itself. Because, let's be real, you can't play that aggressively on just any old instrument off the wall. A standard guitar just isn't going to cut it.
So he starts with a Fender Telecaster, a total classic. But what he ends up with? Well, it's a completely different beast. Honestly, it's less of a guitar and more of a purpose-built machine. He calls it a cyborg guitar, and that's the perfect name for it.
And every single one of these mods has a job. That center pickup, it's perfectly placed to capture the unique, percussive sound of his slapping. The sustainer is wild. It lets him hold a note literally forever, just like a synth pad. And the tremolo system adds all this expression that you just can't get on a normal telly. It's all built for a reason.
Okay, so we've got the technique and we've got the custom guitar. So how does he turn that one instrument into a whole orchestra? Well, that's where things get really interesting. It all happens down here, at his feet. So, first up, probably the most important trick in his playbook. How does he create that thumping bass line when there's no bass player on stage?
He does it with octave pedals. He uses pedals like the Pog 2 and the Boss OC3 to take his guitar signal, create a copy of it an octave or two lower, and then send that out as a totally separate bass line. It's pure genius.
All right, so the low end is handled. Now we get to the fun part, adding all the different flavors of distortion and texture for his main guitar sound.
And what I love here is the mix of total extremes. He's got a classic tube screamer for that smooth overdrive, but then he pairs it with a Pete Cornish NG3, this super rare fuzz pedal that is literally designed to sound like your amp is about to explode. Then you throw in a whammy pedal for those screaming solos. It's just controlled chaos.
Okay, so we have bass, we have grit, but to make everything feel truly massive, you need to add a sense of space and ambiance. You gotta make it cinematic.
For this, he goes straight to the top shelf with the Ventide pedals. Now these aren't your average effects. The H9 and the Time Factor are basically entire recording studios packed into a box. The quality of the reverbs and delays is just pristine, and that's how he creates those incredibly lush, huge soundscapes.
All right, we've covered the hands, the guitar, and the pedals, but now we're at what is maybe the biggest secret behind his enormous live sound. This is where everything we've talked about really comes together.
So think about this for a second. You hear all these different layers at once, right? There's a crisp guitar tone, a really deep bass line, and a screaming fuzz sound. How does he amplify all of that without it just turning into a giant wall of mud?
And the answer is 3. Not 1, not even 2 in stereo. He's almost always using 3 separate amps on stage, and each one has a very specific, dedicated job to do. This is the key.
The genius is in how he splits the signal. His main slap tone goes to a Marshall because it's punchy and bright. The low-end signal from his octave pedals, that goes to its own dedicated bass amp. And all his crazy fuzz and lead tones, they go to a super clean Fender amp so they stay defined. It's like having 3 separate players, each with their own perfect amp.
So let's put all the pieces back together. Let's do a quick recap of how you build the legendary sound of MIYAVI. It really comes down to these 4 pillars, and they're all connected. It all starts with a percussive technique. That technique demands a highly modified guitar. That guitar's signal then gets fed into a pedal board that acts like an orchestra. And finally, each layer from that orchestra gets its own voice through the 3-amp system. It's a perfect ecosystem.
And look, this matters because it's not just about a cool gear setup. It's a completely different philosophy. He is fundamentally changing what the role of a guitarist can be. He's treating the guitar less like an instrument and more like a command center for a whole universe of sound.
What he does really forces us to ask, what is a guitar even supposed to be? He proves it doesn't just have to be 6 strings and some pickups. It can be a drum machine, a bass, a synthesizer, anything. He shatters the conventions, and that leaves us with a pretty inspiring final thought.